why did not someone teach me the constellations too? And make me at home in the starry heavens, which are always overhead, and which I don't have known to this day. By Thomas Carlyle. Welcome back to the South Carolina Virtual Campout, hosted by the South Carolina State Parks, the National Park Service in South Carolina, as well as the National Forest Service in South Carolina. Thank you for joining me as we head into an adventure on the night sky. My name is Ranger Adrian, and I work at 96 National Historic Site, which is part of the Southern Campaign Parks Group. But before we jump ahead, I want to take a minute to introduce some tools that you can use on your exploration through the sky to help you find your constellations. The first one is a very simple, very basic, old school. It is just a paper printout of the night sky, a sky map. This one is for April, so the current month. The site that I got this from, they release them every month, so you can have a constant map of what the night sky will look like. This one is set up so that in the corner here you have the month and the year that it's for, and then you have early April, 10 p.m. So this is approximately what the sky looks like in early April. Underneath that it says late April, 9 p.m. So about 9 p.m. later in April, this is what this will look like, or this is what the night sky will look like. So we're probably about halfway there. Down here in this bottom corner are symbols telling you, like on a normal road map or any map, what your different symbols stand for. So we've got galaxies, double stars, visible stars, things like that. On this other side is a sky calendar with lots of different helpful information about what's coming up. So, like on April 4th, the moon was near Regulus, which is a star. And later in the month, on April 28th, Venus will be at its brightest. So that's a pretty handy-dandy little thing there. Now on this one, if you flip it over onto the back, it also has a list of celestial objects, and it's got them broken down so that you can see. This top one up here says visible with the naked eye, or easily seen with the naked eye. The middle one, easily seen with binoculars. And then the bottom one, telescope of objects. So what's going to be better to look at through a telescope? We're not really going to focus on this tonight since we're focusing on the constellations. But I did want to show you how to use this so you can find your constellations once you go outside. Now, if you're looking at this, at first you might think, okay, looks like a map. Hold it down here. We've got north pointing up, south pointing down. Looks good. But when we start looking east and west, wait a minute, they're flipped. Pretty sure east is supposed to be that way. Pretty sure in middle school, elementary school, we learned never eat sour wheat. But they've got west over here and east over here. Well, the reason for that is this is not made to be held down like this. It's made to be held up, resembling the night sky. If you know in which direction one of your points are, you can orient it. So we'll say that north is facing that way. So I will take my map and I will flip it so that north and I are facing north. Now I know that east is over here, south is behind me, and west is to my left. So it really makes a lot more sense once you get outside and start holding it up above your head. This is supposed to help you kind of find in the sphere of things where your constellations are. It's not going to be perfect. but it is a good starting point and pretty good general area. Now the other option is handy dandy technology. Depending on how advanced your phone or your tablet might be, you might be able to do different functions with it. But if you go to any of the app stores and type in sky map, night sky, something in that category, you'll come up with lots and lots of different apps. No right or wrong app out there. A lot of them are free. So if you've got the capability, some of them will let you hold up and see exactly, it knows exactly which direction you're facing, where your longitude and latitude are, and it'll tell you what constellation you're looking at. Not all phones, of course, have that capability. Mine does not. But again, like the paper map, I can know where north is or south or west, whichever direction, and help find my constellations through there. I'm going to bring it closer so you can see, and we're going to talk about turning it to a very important setting. Okay, so you can see right now that my phone is blue. That is just the normal setting. If you're going to go outside at night and really going to use this, you want to make sure that you turn it to the night mode or red light mode. You can see how it just turned red. The red light is going to help preserve your night vision. It does take between 30 and 45 minutes to get your night vision, so once you have it, you want to do your best to keep it, and switching your phone so that it's dimmer and in that red light mode will really help out. Alright, so once we've got our maps, our app, whichever tool we decided to use, we can head outside. If you can't go outside, or if it's cloudy outside and you can't get a good look at the night sky, that is fine. Just use the map or your cell phone to follow along and find the constellations. Now, if you do get to go outside, just make sure that the area is safe before you head out there without any lights. Make sure there's no tripping hazards or anything that's going to put you in danger. Now, before we get out there, let's all just take a minute and think, what do you think of, yourself, what do you think of when you hear the word night? Take a minute. If you would like, you can write it down. All right. Well, maybe some of you answered that you think of the stars or the moon. Maybe you think of bats and frogs and crickets. Maybe quiet. Maybe noise, sirens. What about streetlights? Or parties? Maybe sleeping. Maybe you think about fear and danger. Or, on the other hand, maybe you think about peace and calmness. All of these and more are perfectly acceptable answers to what you think of when you hear the word night. Our view on the night is influenced by many different aspects. The easiest aspects to point out are, of course, where you live. Do you live in the city where there's a lot of light pollution and you maybe don't get to see as many stars? Do you live in the country where there's not as much light pollution, so you do see a lot of stars? Or maybe you live in the suburbs. Maybe you live in the mountains, in a wooded area where there's a lot of trees blocking the light from the stars. Or maybe you live on the coast and you can see off over the ocean lots of stars, but not lots behind you. Maybe you live in the desert The desert is a great place for stargazing. Maybe you've had a bad situation happen to you at night. Maybe you've had good situations happen to you at night. Did you grow up with people telling you to look up into the night sky? Look at that bright star, or look at that magnificent moon. Do you spend most of your time inside? Do you spend most of your time outside? These and more are all things that can shape how we view the night sky. I hope that by the end of this, that you will be able to enjoy the night sky and all the wonderful things it has to offer. We're going to start off small with just a few constellations. But maybe by the end, you'll be inspired. You'll at least hopefully be able to pick out one or two. And maybe from there, you'll learn more and more. Now for eons, the night sky has played a role in human life. We have used it as a map, as a calendar, and as a storybook. Before compasses and GPSs were around, people were using the stars to guide them around the globe. In the southeastern United States, one of the most well-known examples of stars being used for navigation was with the enslaved people who were trying to escape to freedom, using the Big Dipper, or the drinking gourd, to point the way north. Farmers worldwide have kept track of the seasons and have known when to plow, when to plant, and when to harvest by them knowing that when a certain star rises in the morning or sets in the evening, that it is time to do so. As a storybook, stars have provided entertainment while simultaneously preserving oral history as well as explaining why things are the way they are. As humans looked up into the sky, they saw shapes. They connected those tiny little lights and made shapes out of them, gave them names, and gave them stories. Today, we call these shapes constellations. The International Astronomical Union recognizes 88 constellations through the southern and northern hemispheres. A large portion of these recognized constellations come from the Greco-Roman mythology, but almost every culture has looked up, seen the sky, and made shapes out of it, and given it their own names and their own stories. Tonight, we are going to take a look at a few of the constellations, just a few, that are up there, visible in the sky, and we will discuss their stories. So that we're not here all night, we are only going to focus on the Greco-Roman stories tonight, and then at the end, we'll wrap it up with a little special story. Because recording doesn't work so well in the dark, I'm just going to turn the camera off, go take some pictures, and then I'll come back and work them into the stories. So, I hope you enjoy it. We're going to start off our journey through the skies with the well-known shape of the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper is not a constellation, but is an asterism, or a distinct and easily recognized group of stars, often within a constellation. To find the Big Dipper, look in the northern sky. Here you can see what the Big Dipper looks like, with the 4 stars making its bowl, and the other 3 its handle. The Big Dipper is part of the constellation Ursa Major, or the Big Bear. Unfortunately, I could not see the rest of the Big Bear. The handle of the Big Dipper is the bear's tail, and the bowl is the bear's hindquarters. Yes, the bear has a long tail. In one myth, Callisto was a beautiful nymph who Zeus, the king of the gods, fell in love with. They had a son, Arcus. When Hera, Zeus's wife, found out about Callisto and her son, she punished Callisto by turning her into a bear and forcing her into exile. Because his mother had been turned into a bear, Arcus was raised not knowing her. When he grew up, he went hunting one day and came across a great bear. He did not realize this was no ordinary bear, but his mother, and so he prepared to draw his weapon and kill her. Seeing the calamity that was about to unfold, Zeus placed Callisto in the sky as a bear, and her son Arcus was placed near her as the constellation Bootes. From the Big Dipper, find the star that connects the bowl and handle. From there, trace a line through the star at the outer base of the bowl, and continue it till you end up near the twins, or the Gemini. Pollux and Castor were twin half-brothers. They had the same mother, but different fathers. The father of Castor was a mortal king, while the father of Pollux was Zeus. Because Pollux was fathered by Zeus, he was immortal. The two brothers were inseparable and did everything together. During a fight, Castor was mortally wounded. Seeing his brother in such a state, Pollux begged his father, Zeus, to give his immortality to his brother. Taking pity on the two, Zeus gave both immortality and placed them in the sky so that they would be by each other's side forever. Located behind the twins is a bright star which marks the constellation Canis Minor, the little dog. This is one of the smallest constellations, as it only contains 2 stars. Below the Gemini on the horizon is Orion, the hunter. He is one of the most well-known constellations, with his distinct hourglass shape and the 3 stars forming his belt. Orion was the son of the sea god Poseidon and was a great hunter. One day he boasted that he was so skilled he could kill any beast on the earth. Gaia, the Greek personification of Mother Earth, was displeased with this cocky attitude and sent a tiny scorpion to kill Orion. The scorpion successfully stung Orion and killed him, but not before Orion stepped on the scorpion, killing him in turn. Both Orion and Scorpion, or Scorpius, was placed in the sky, Orion on one end, Scorpius on the other. From Orion, draw a line through the 3 stars making his belt, and continue till you come to the V of Taurus, the bull. The brightest star in Taurus has a orange-red hue and marks one of his eyes. If you continue the V up, you will eventually come to the tip of his horns. If you can make out the Pleiades, they mark his shoulder. In Greek mythology, Taurus represented Zeus, who turned himself into a white bull to trick the princess Europa. When she climbed onto his back, he abducted her and carried her across the Mediterranean Sea to the island of Crete. She later gave birth to a son, Minos, the legendary king of Crete. Now that we have identified some of the constellations and told their stories, try to make your own constellations and stories. You can use the constellations we have pointed out, change what they are, change their names, or even create brand new shapes by connecting different stars. When making your stories, you can have a different story for each, or you can weave them all together. As an example, I have prepared a star story. I am going to use the constellations that we just talked about. The Gemini will remain brothers. Orion will be their father.
Taurus will become a buffalo or bison, Canis Minor will still be a dog, and the Big Dipper will become a whale. 300 years ago, in the Carolina backcountry, a father and his 2 sons lived in a cabin. Years ago, when the father was a young man, he and his wife had immigrated to the colony of South Carolina, where they were given land to farm. They had worked hard, but had been successful in farming and had built a multi-room cabin in which to live. Eventually, they had children, 2 sons and a daughter. Unfortunately, during the birth of their daughter, both the wife and the daughter had died. The father and his sons mourned their loss. The father had promised his wife before her death that he would protect their sons with his life. One day, the father sent the boys out to fetch some water from the well. As protection, they took their little dog along with them. The well was a ways off, and the boys got distracted and started playing chase through the woods. The next thing they knew, they were lost. They wandered and wandered, but could not find their way back to the trail. Meanwhile, their father was becoming worried, as it should not take them this long to simply fetch water. When they did not return, he grabbed his rifle and set out to find them. He searched, and he searched, into the night. Finally, in the distance, he heard a noise. The noise of an angry buffalo, along with the growls and barks of the little dog. The father rushed towards the noise, bursting through brush and briars. When he came upon the scene, he found his sons trembling together under an old chestnut tree, with the little dog fighting off an enraged buffalo. The little dog was badly injured, but to protect the boys, continued to fight the buffalo. As the buffalo charged the dog, the father raised his loaded rifle and shot. But this shot only infuriated the buffalo even more, and focused his anger on the father. Now, loading a rifle was a slow process, and the father could not load it fast enough. Realizing this, he threw his rifle on the ground and drew his hunting knife. For what seemed like hours, the father and little dog did their best to keep the buffalo away from the boys, despite being injured by the buffalo's horns. Finally, the father saw an opening and took it, stabbing and killing the buffalo. As the buffalo breathed its last, the 2 boys slowly ventured out from the tree, where their father and little dog kneeled, both panting and bloody. They tore strips from their clothes and bandaged them, and took the knife from their father's hand. While their father and the little dog rested, the boys began butchering the buffalo to prepare it to take home. They made a fire and cooked some of the meat over it. The next morning, the 4 of them slowly made their way home.
Well, thank you for joining us. I hope that you have enjoyed the star stories, and that the next time you step outside during a clear night when the stars are shining bright, that you will look up, maybe remember some of those constellations, and maybe even make your own.